When Ambassador Victoria Ashworth became Washington's most trusted diplomat, foreign governments relied on her to broker international peace treaties. But when her fentanyl addiction and espionage schemes consumed her, she began selling state secrets to enemy nations and murdering intelligence assets who discovered her crimes, turning embassy receptions into deadly spy networks where diplomacy was traded for treason. Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now let's get back to the video. The Swiss Alps cast long shadows across Geneva's diplomatic quarter as Ambassador Victoria Ashworth organized encrypted diplomatic pouches and foreign intelligence contacts for what would become the most dangerous international negotiation of her 28-year career as America's most accomplished diplomat and international treaty specialist. At 57 years old, Victoria had established herself as the State Department's premier ambassador, commanding multi-billion-dollar foreign aid packages and classified intelligence sharing agreements that attracted hostile foreign governments, international spy networks, and enemy intelligence services who valued her access to America's most sensitive diplomatic communications and her reputation for facilitating the most secretive and strategically valuable international agreements affecting global power structures and national security operations. Victoria's embassy compound occupied the most secure diplomatic facility in Geneva's international district, featuring classified communication centers, encrypted satellite networks, and top-secret intelligence coordination rooms that allowed her to oversee America's most sensitive international operations, while maintaining absolute control over foreign policy decisions and intelligence sharing programs that determined the outcome of international conflicts and shaped global political alliances affecting American national interests and international security cooperation. The interior of Victoria's ambassador residence reflected her mastery of international diplomacy and her understanding of the global intelligence community's expectations for both strategic excellence and absolute secrecy during the most critical foreign policy negotiations in American international relations, featuring walls displaying diplomatic credentials from multiple presidential administrations, photographs of classified treaty negotiations, and testimonials from grateful foreign policy officials whose international agreements had been facilitated through her diplomatic expertise and strategic guidance, affecting billions in foreign aid and international security cooperation programs. But beneath Victoria's reputation for diplomatic excellence lay a dangerous combination of prescription fentanyl addiction, systematic espionage operations, and calculated murder that had transformed her embassy operations into criminal enterprises, where threatening intelligence assets and suspicious investigators met their fate through diplomatic immunity and witness elimination during vulnerable international negotiations. "Good evening, Ambassador Ashworth," said CIA Station Chief Robert Kellerman, arriving for his weekly classified intelligence briefing about ongoing international surveillance operations and foreign intelligence threats that required Victoria's diplomatic coordination for covert intelligence gathering and classified information sharing programs affecting global security operations and American intelligence activities in hostile foreign territories. Kellerman had recently detected irregular communication patterns and had begun questioning Victoria's explanations about diplomatic protocol modifications and classified intelligence sharing procedures that seemed to bypass normal State Department oversight and security verification processes. "Good evening, Station Chief Kellerman," Victoria replied with the diplomatic authority and international expertise that had made her legendary among Washington's foreign policy establishment, who viewed her as both strategic negotiator and intelligence coordinator, capable of navigating the most complex international conflicts while ensuring American diplomatic superiority through sophisticated treaty negotiations and classified intelligence operations that protected national interests during the most dangerous global security crises and international political confrontations. "I've reviewed the classified reports on international intelligence threats, and I believe we need to modify certain diplomatic protocols to enhance our intelligence gathering capabilities and strengthen our strategic position in ongoing international negotiations." Kellerman had become Victoria's most dangerous intelligence contact, not because of his demanding security briefings or his classified information requirements, but because of his recent discovery of unauthorized intelligence transfers and his growing awareness of the espionage operation that Victoria had been conducting while supposedly providing diplomatic oversight of America's most sensitive foreign policy programs and international intelligence coordination activities. What Kellerman didn't know was that Victoria had been systematically selling state secrets and murdering intelligence assets for over 4 years, using her ambassador authority and access to classified diplomatic communications to coordinate international espionage operations while eliminating anyone who discovered her coordination with enemy intelligence services or threatened to expose her criminal exploitation of American diplomatic resources for foreign governments and hostile intelligence networks. Victoria's transformation from respected ambassador to calculating killer had begun 6 years earlier, when her prescription fentanyl addiction had escalated from legitimate pain management following a diplomatic security incident to daily dependency on various opioid substances that consumed her substantial diplomatic income and forced her into desperate relationships with foreign intelligence services and enemy spy networks who offered enormous payments for access to American diplomatic communications and classified foreign policy information affecting international security operations and American intelligence activities. Her addiction had grown to cost over $4,000 per day, while her access to America's most sensitive diplomatic networks had provided unprecedented opportunities for coordinating international espionage operations that generated hundreds of millions in profits through coordination with hostile foreign governments and enemy intelligence services seeking American diplomatic secrets and classified policy information. Faced with increasing pressure from drug suppliers and potential exposure by intelligence agencies, Victoria had been recruited by international spy networks who recognized her ambassador authority and diplomatic access as invaluable assets for obtaining American foreign policy intelligence through unauthorized transfers of classified diplomatic communications, sensitive treaty negotiations, and confidential intelligence sharing agreements that could be used against American interests and allied nations in global conflicts and international political confrontations. Her criminal activities had escalated when several intelligence assets and diplomatic security personnel had discovered evidence of unauthorized information transfers and had threatened to report their suspicions to State Department security investigators and federal law enforcement agencies, investigating espionage patterns targeting America's most sensitive diplomatic programs and classified international operations. Victoria had murdered her first victim, a suspicious embassy security officer who had detected irregular communication protocols, by orchestrating a terrorist attack using foreign intelligence assets during a diplomatic reception that appeared to be international terrorism rather than domestic espionage assassination. The success of her first murder had convinced Victoria that eliminating threatening intelligence assets and suspicious diplomatic investigators was both necessary for protecting her espionage operation and surprisingly manageable given her complete diplomatic immunity and her ability to coordinate with international spy networks who could stage attacks and eliminate witnesses while providing plausible cover stories involving foreign terrorism and international security threats affecting diplomatic facilities and American embassy operations. Over the following 4 years, Victoria had murdered 13 additional individuals using various international espionage methods and foreign intelligence coordination that took advantage of her diplomatic authority, her access to hostile foreign intelligence networks during vulnerable diplomatic negotiations, and her ability to stage deaths as terrorist attacks or foreign assassination operations that occurred during routine international diplomatic activities with government officials who had access to classified information that could expose international criminal networks and threaten foreign intelligence operations. Her victims had been carefully selected based on their discovery of her criminal activities, their potential cooperation with federal authorities, or their knowledge of classified diplomatic programs that could expose her international espionage network and foreign intelligence coordination affecting American national security and global diplomatic stability. Her victims had included Dr. Patricia Williams, a State Department intelligence analyst who had discovered evidence of systematic information trafficking and whose embassy consultation had resulted in fatal car bombing staged by foreign intelligence assets during routine diplomatic transport. Jennifer Martinez, a diplomatic security investigator who had reported suspicious communication patterns and whose Geneva office meeting had ended in fatal foreign assassination using classified poison delivery systems obtained through international spy networks. And David Foster, a federal counterintelligence investigator who had been tracking diplomatic espionage and whose embassy briefing had resulted in fatal exposure to weaponized chemical agents disguised as foreign bioterrorism attack targeting American diplomatic officials and intelligence personnel. Ambassador Ashworth, I need to discuss some serious concerns about espionage activities and reports of unauthorized intelligence transfers connected to your diplomatic operations, said FBI Deputy Director Sarah Rodriguez of the Bureau's Counterintelligence Division, as she arrived at Victoria's Geneva embassy carrying classified warrants to inspect her diplomatic files and interview her about suspicious foreign policy activities. Deputy Director Rodriguez specialized in investigating international espionage and diplomatic corruption and had developed expertise in recognizing patterns of intelligence trafficking and foreign collaboration that compromised American national security and facilitated enemy access to classified diplomatic information and foreign policy intelligence. Deputy Director Rodriguez's investigation represented an existential threat to Victoria's criminal operation, as her federal counterintelligence expertise and access to classified espionage databases could expose the systematic intelligence trafficking operations and connect her to multiple suspicious deaths during diplomatic briefings and embassy consultations, affecting American foreign policy and international security operations. Of course, Deputy Director Rodriguez, Victoria replied, though she felt the familiar surge of fentanyl withdrawal anxiety and criminal desperation that accompanied any official scrutiny of her diplomatic operations by federal law enforcement officers who possessed the training and resources to detect evidence of international espionage and systematic murder, disguised as terrorist attacks or foreign intelligence operations targeting American diplomatic facilities and embassy personnel. National security and diplomatic integrity are always my highest priorities, and I want to cooperate with any investigation that might help protect American interests and ensure that diplomatic operations comply with all applicable national security standards and constitutional requirements affecting international relations and foreign policy coordination. Deputy Director Rodriguez consulted detailed reports from counterintelligence investigators and diplomatic security analysts that showed patterns of unauthorized intelligence transfers and embassy personnel deaths that suggested systematic criminal activity rather than random terrorist attacks or legitimate foreign intelligence operations targeting American diplomatic programs and international security personnel. Ambassador Ashworth, I've been investigating reports of espionage activities and unauthorized intelligence transfers that appear to be connected to diplomatic programs overseen by your embassy operations, Deputy Director Rodriguez said, with the investigative precision that had made her successful in solving complex counterintelligence cases. 13 individuals who were intelligence assets or diplomatic personnel involved in classified programs under your embassy's jurisdiction have died under suspicious circumstances, with several of these deaths occurring after the victims had discovered evidence of irregular intelligence transfers or had questioned unauthorized communication protocols during classified briefings. The federal investigator's identification of the espionage patterns and her recognition of the timing correlation between discovery of criminal activities and embassy personnel deaths confirmed Victoria's worst fears that her criminal activities had been analyzed and connected to her systematic elimination of suspicious intelligence assets and exploitation of diplomatic authority for international espionage operations and foreign intelligence coordination affecting American national security and diplomatic effectiveness. Victoria's response was swift and deadly as she realized that eliminating Deputy Director Rodriguez was essential for protecting her criminal enterprise and preventing exposure of her systematic espionage operations and murder activities. Deputy Director Rodriguez, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the complex nature of classified diplomatic operations and the unfortunate reality that embassy personnel working on sensitive international intelligence programs sometimes become targets of foreign terrorism, despite the most advanced security protocols and counterintelligence protection, Victoria said, while discreetly activating a concealed nerve agent delivery system that she had installed in her embassy office using foreign intelligence technology for emergency elimination of federal law enforcement threats. Perhaps we could discuss these concerns in my classified diplomatic briefing room, where I can demonstrate the security procedures that might explain these tragic incidents. Embassy intelligence operations involve the highest levels of international classification that might appear suspicious to those unfamiliar with foreign terrorism threats and hostile intelligence targeting of American diplomatic officials and embassy personnel. Deputy Director Rodriguez agreed to examine Victoria's classified diplomatic security procedures, not realizing that the ambassador was leading her to a secure briefing room where previous murders had been committed and where Victoria planned to kill her using weaponized nerve agents obtained through her foreign intelligence network contacts that would cause rapid death while appearing to be sophisticated international chemical weapons. Attack targeting American counterintelligence officials and diplomatic security personnel. Victoria's plan involved convincing Deputy Director Rodriguez to review specific classified diplomatic materials while explaining international security procedures, then activating her concealed nerve agent system to release concentrated chemical weapons throughout the sealed briefing room, causing immediate death while appearing to be sophisticated foreign espionage attack rather than deliberate murder by an ambassador protecting her intelligence, trafficking, and foreign coordination operations. But Victoria's carefully planned murder of the federal investigator was about to be prevented by the unexpected arrival of diplomatic security agents who had been investigating embassy security breaches and had identified connections to her systematic intelligence trafficking activities. Special Agent Michael Torres of the Diplomatic Security Service's Counterintelligence Division had been conducting a comprehensive investigation into embassy security breaches and diplomatic corruption operations that exploited ambassador authority to facilitate international espionage and eliminate potential witnesses to intelligence trafficking affecting American diplomatic effectiveness and global security operations. Agent Torres specialized in investigating diplomatic security crimes and had developed expertise in tracking espionage networks that compromised classified diplomatic programs while conducting systematic elimination of threats to international intelligence trafficking operations affecting national security and diplomatic stability. The diplomatic security investigation had been initiated by reports from multiple intelligence agencies and embassy security monitors, who had noticed patterns of suspicious intelligence, transfers, and diplomatic personnel deaths that suggested organized spy networks were infiltrating American embassies to facilitate espionage operations, while eliminating potential witnesses through sophisticated terrorist attack methods disguised as foreign intelligence operations, targeting American diplomatic officials and embassy security personnel. Agent Torres had been conducting surveillance of Victoria's intelligence access patterns and diplomatic activities and had documented evidence of systematic fentanyl procurement, involvement in espionage operations, and suspicious patterns of embassy personnel deaths that suggested her diplomatic authority was being used for organized criminal activity rather than legitimate international diplomacy and foreign policy coordination. Ambassador Victoria Ashworth, "I'm Special Agent Torres with the Diplomatic Security Service," he announced as he entered the classified briefing room, where Victoria was preparing to poison Deputy Director Rodriguez with nerve agents. "I have federal warrants for your arrest on charges of systematic international espionage, classified intelligence trafficking, conspiracy to commit treason, conspiracy to aid foreign intelligence services, and multiple counts of first-degree murder related to your systematic exploitation of diplomatic authority for criminal intelligence trafficking activities and foreign espionage coordination operations affecting American national security and international diplomatic stability." Victoria's reaction to the diplomatic security agent's intervention was a combination of ambassador authority confusion and desperate attempts to maintain her foreign policy credibility. as she realized that federal law enforcement and diplomatic security agencies at multiple levels had been investigating her espionage activities and had connected them to systematic embassy personnel murders and international spy network coordination. Her carefully maintained reputation as a respected ambassador had failed to protect her from comprehensive investigation by agencies with expertise in diplomatic security and international espionage, affecting American foreign policy operations and global diplomatic effectiveness. Special Agent Torres, there must be some serious misunderstanding about legitimate diplomatic coordination and the complex international security requirements involved in classified embassy operations that require careful collaboration with foreign intelligence agencies and advanced security measures to protect American diplomatic interests and international policy effectiveness, Victoria said frantically while abandoning her plan to poison Deputy Director Rodriguez and attempting to preserve some semblance of diplomatic professionalism despite the overwhelming evidence against her criminal activities. I am a United States ambassador with 28 years of experience providing diplomatic oversight for America's most critical international programs and foreign policy operations. All of my embassy activities comply with established diplomatic standards and international regulations designed to ensure American foreign policy effectiveness and national security protection. Deputy Director Rodriguez looked absolutely stunned as she realized how close she had come to being murdered by the ambassador she had been investigating for international espionage. Her counterintelligence investigation had not only exposed Victoria's espionage and murder operation, but it also prevented her own death at the hands of a killer who had been using diplomatic authority as cover for systematic elimination of intelligence assets and federal law enforcement threats. The comprehensive investigation that followed Victoria's arrest revealed the full scope of her criminal enterprise and the sophisticated methods she had developed to exploit diplomatic authority for systematic international espionage and murder. Forensic analysis of Victoria's embassy operations revealed extensive evidence of her espionage activities, including sophisticated encrypted communication systems for coordinating with hostile foreign intelligence services, detailed records of classified intelligence sales worth billions of dollars, and comprehensive files containing classified diplomatic information that had been transferred to enemy nations and international spy networks, threatening American national security and global diplomatic stability. The investigation also uncovered Victoria's connections to international spy networks and hostile foreign intelligence services who had been coordinating espionage operations and diplomatic corruption while using her embassy access to obtain classified American foreign policy information and eliminate potential witnesses through sophisticated terrorist attack methods disguised as foreign intelligence operations targeting American diplomatic officials and embassy personnel. Most disturbing was the discovery of Victoria's detailed knowledge of classified diplomatic systems and international espionage operational methods, which she had used to develop increasingly sophisticated approaches for trafficking American foreign policy intelligence while eliminating embassy personnel who discovered her criminal operations or threatened to expose her foreign intelligence coordination activities affecting American national security and international diplomatic effectiveness. Ambassador Victoria Ashworth was ultimately convicted of 14 counts of first-degree murder, systematic international espionage, conspiracy to commit treason, conspiracy to aid hostile foreign intelligence services, classified intelligence trafficking, conspiracy to commit organized criminal enterprise activities, and numerous other charges related to her exploitation of diplomatic authority for criminal intelligence, trafficking activities, and international espionage coordination operations affecting American national security and global diplomatic stability. The conviction sent unprecedented shockwaves throughout Washington's diplomatic and intelligence establishments, prompting immediate reforms in embassy security oversight, diplomatic communication monitoring, and ambassador addiction prevention, measures designed to protect American foreign policy from exploitation by corrupted diplomatic officials involved in international criminal activities affecting global diplomatic stability and intelligence security. Several other ambassadors and diplomatic officials were investigated for similar criminal activities, resulting in enhanced oversight of embassy operations and new requirements for intelligence tracking, security verification, and diplomatic protection measures that made it more difficult for international spy networks to exploit diplomatic authority for systematic espionage operations and foreign intelligence coordination. Deputy Director Rodriguez and Agent Torres received recognition for their collaborative investigation and became specialists in diplomatic espionage investigation, developing new techniques for identifying intelligence trafficking operations and protecting American foreign policy from exploitation by corrupted diplomatic officials and international spy network infiltration. CIA Station Chief Robert Kellerman and other surviving intelligence personnel required extensive security protection and classified briefing verification to overcome the trauma of learning that their trusted ambassador had been systematically trafficking intelligence and murdering embassy personnel while exploiting her diplomatic authority for international criminal activities affecting American national security and global diplomatic stability. The diplomatic security system implemented comprehensive new integrity protocols designed to protect foreign policy from exploitation by corrupted ambassador officials. The case prompted comprehensive changes in diplomatic security regulation, including mandatory security investigations and addiction screening for all ambassadors with intelligence access, enhanced oversight of embassy communications and classified briefings, real-time monitoring of diplomatic interactions and international communications, and new reporting procedures for suspicious diplomatic activities involving national security violations or potential foreign intelligence coordination indicators. Victoria's conviction also led to increased cooperation between diplomatic security agencies and federal law enforcement organizations investigating international espionage, with new protocols designed to identify diplomatic systems that might be exploited for systematic criminal activities while eliminating potential witnesses to diplomatic corruption and national security violations. The diplomatic security community and broader foreign policy establishment implemented revolutionary new integrity measures, including enhanced screening procedures for diplomatic officials, comprehensive national security protection programs, mandatory reporting of suspicious diplomatic activities, and improved training for recognizing signs of fentanyl addiction and international spy network involvement among ambassadors and embassy staff with access to classified foreign policy information. 5 years after Victoria's conviction and life imprisonment, Washington's diplomatic community continued to implement safeguards designed to protect American foreign policy from ambassadors who might abuse their positions of ultimate diplomatic authority for criminal purposes affecting international security operations and global diplomatic stability. The ambassador who had promised to protect American interests and advance foreign policy objectives had instead used her diplomatic authority and embassy access to commit systematic espionage and murder, while exploiting the highest levels of American diplomatic power for foreign intelligence coordination that threatened the very foundations of national security and global diplomatic effectiveness. However, her crimes had been thoroughly exposed, and her victims had found justice through the dedication of federal investigators who refused to accept terrorism-related deaths as mere foreign intelligence operations targeting American diplomatic officials and embassy personnel. Ambassador Victoria Ashworth's final negotiation had been permanently concluded by the diplomatic resolution of federal justice, where she would serve multiple life sentences without possibility of parole, proving that even diplomatic officials who attempted to exploit their embassy authority for criminal gain could be identified, investigated, and brought to justice when dedicated federal law enforcement and diplomatic security agencies worked together to protect American foreign policy from predatory diplomatic corruption and international spy network infiltration. The ambassador's final negotiation had ended with her permanent removal from diplomatic service, serving as a lasting reminder that those entrusted with the highest diplomatic authority must never abuse that sacred international responsibility. And the diplomatic officials who would exploit embassy trust and foreign policy authority for criminal gain will ultimately face the full consequences of their betrayal of diplomatic integrity and American national security. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.